The interaction is basically the first time that you're interacting with the prospect. And so this can take a few different shapes. One of the most common things that you might picture for this first step is a cold call, an outbound cold call. Could also be an inbound call where a prospect calls you or calls your company. Could be a cold email, cold outreach. You might meet someone at a networking event. Could be interacting with someone on a website chat. Maybe your company, or you have a website chat feature that inbound prospect asks you questions. Could be interacting with someone on social media. So those are some of the ways that the interaction step can look like. By the way, you don't have to memorize this list or any of these details. I'm trying to help you to get your hands around what each of these steps might look like so that you can have more clarity as to where you're at the particular process when you're talking or interacting with a prospect and what you need to do. So this is what the interaction step can look like. Now, the goals when you're at the interaction step with a prospect. Now, remember, your natural instinct is to try to make progress towards getting them to purchase, but that's not one of your goals. Your goal is to pre-qualify. Now, we'll talk about qualifying and pre-qualifying in an upcoming module, but pre-qualifying, I'll give you a quick preview of what we're going to talk about. Qualifying is determining, is this prospect for real? Do they have money? Do they have the authority to purchase? Do they truly need what I have? Pre-qualifying is, does it even make sense for us to talk? Now, keep in mind, we're at the interaction step. The next step of the sales process is the conversation step. All we're trying to do is determine, does it make sense for both parties to progress to the next step, which is conversation. And all we need to do is pre-qualify. So that's just determining, does it even make sense? Are we even in the general vicinity? The other goals of the interaction are to build interest in talking more, really to build interest in having a conversation. Remember, your natural instinct is to try to sell the product and build interest in the purchase, but that's not what we need to accomplish now. We don't need to build interest in the prospect. Going back to the web design, if we're selling web design at the interaction step, we don't need to get the prospect interested in redoing their website. We just need to get them interested in talking with us, maybe talking with us about their website or about web design. And the close at the interaction step is just to close for the conversation. So we're not trying to close the sale, we're closing for the next step in the process. Some suggestions on structuring the interaction step is that it should be a 2 to 5 minute interaction. Now, this is if you're actually talking with them, whether that's over the phone or in person, or even interacting with them on a website chat. The interaction step should be 2 to 5 minutes. If it goes beyond that, you're really taking too much time to try to accomplish the goals for the interaction. And either you're dragging out the interaction too long and trying to do too much or moving too slowly, or you've progressed to the next sales process step and you need to know when that's happening. You need to know if you're sitting there on the phone and you've ended up in a 15-minute phone conversation, you need to know, I've progressed to the conversation and I'm no longer in the interaction. See, part of the value here is having more clarity around where you are in these 3 steps. Because if you know where you are, it gives you more control and clarity for what you need to do and where you need to go. It's sort of like if you're driving to a destination. Sure, you want to know the directions of where you're going, but part of knowing the directions and how to get there, part of it is knowing where you're currently at. Just like when you look at a GPS map, it's really helpful to see the dot of where you are in addition to the directions of where you need to go. Now, a couple other details on the structure. Your natural instinct is to talk about you, to talk about your product, and to close a sale, which would make you probably, if you follow your natural instinct, and this is what product selling salespeople do, is to talk about yourself either 100% of the time, talk about your product 100% of the time, or maybe 80. But I want you to flip that. We want to make the interaction all about the prospect. So it's 80% of the interaction is on the prospect and 20% is on you. What that might look like is if, let's say you're talking to someone for 5 minutes at a networking event, you want the first 4 minutes to be about them, or the first 80%. What do you do? Oh, how's that going? And you're learning about them. And then the next 20% is maybe about you, where, oh, this is what I do. Let me give you another example. On a cold call, what that might look like is the first 80% of the cold call is about the prospect, where you're asking them questions about what's going on with them. And then you share just a little bit about you. The 20% about you is just enough for you to build enough interest, not so that you can sell the product, but so that you can build an interest in talking more and sell the conversation. And so the questions that you want to ask in the interaction step are pain questions, which we talked a little bit about that in the last training module, and current state questions. So we will end up giving you a lot of different questions in the Smart Sales System. And these 3 steps will tell you what questions you need to ask. And the only real questions that you need to ask in the interaction step are pain questions and current state questions.